Stories like this over and over again of high-risk offenders living in the community and putting the public at risk.
A repeat offender has been charged with sexually assaulting a teenage girl this week during an alleged crime spree in Vancouver, sparking frustration from police. Plus, the suspect in the Lapu Lapu Day Festival tragedy will face a 2-day trial this summer to determine if he is mentally fit to stand trial for murder. And
we were angered and annoyed at it, and obviously that's opposed to the testing.
Canada's third largest port plans to test self-driving trucks, but the union representing port workers is pushing back.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, thanks for joining us. A man has been arrested after a string of assaults in the Oak Ridge area. Among the charges, sexual assault of a teen girl in a medical office bathroom. The accused, a repeat offender with a history of violent attacks. Mira Baines has our top story.
Vancouver police say there was a series of violent incidents allegedly involving a 62-year-old suspect, including the sexual assault of a 14-year-old girl on Wednesday afternoon. Vancouver police say they happened here in the Oak Ridge area. The man arrested is John Frederick Field from Surrey. Vancouver police say on Wednesday, a 58-year-old woman was leaving a medical appointment and was grabbed in the hallway and assaulted by a stranger. She managed to get away, and minutes later, a 14-year-old using a public washroom in the same medical building was sexually assaulted by the same man. She was forcibly confined, and then another person tried to come into the bathroom and interrupted what was happening. The suspect then left and entered a bank and allegedly committed a robbery. Police arrived on the scene and arrested Field. The 14-year-old victim is credited with providing a clear description.
She was able to give such a detailed description in a time of stress, probably the absolute worst time of any woman or young girl's life. This is the biggest fear. She was able to give such a detailed description that as the officers were pulling up on scene, they picked him off immediately.
Field has been remanded in custody. According to court records, he was on probation at the time for another sexual assault. In that case, the sexual assault of a hospital medical technician who was doing a test on Field's heart. He had been sentenced to 30 months in prison last September, but served only 3 as he had time served.
And we are presenting stories like this over and over again of high-risk offenders living in the community and putting the public at risk. So as the police, there's not much we can do when it comes to court processes and sentencing and all that, but we do definitely share the frustration that the public has.
He has a long history of convictions dating back to 1980. A judge did note during Field's last sentencing that he had been assessed for a possible dangerous offender or long-term offender application, but Crown prosecutors did not move ahead on that. A bail hearing is scheduled for June 12th. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
The man accused in the Lapu Lapu Day incident made an appearance in court today. 11 people were killed and many more injured when an SUV plowed through the food truck area at the festival site. Karen Larson reports.
The suspect in the Lapu Lapu Street Festival car attack will be on trial 2 days, likely sometime this summer. Not on the 8 counts of second-degree murder he's facing, although that could still happen. Rather for the court to determine if he is mentally fit to be tried on those charges. That is the result of Kaiji Adam Lowe's hearing today in Vancouver Provincial Court, where he appeared via video from where he's still in custody. Lowe allegedly drove his SUV through a crowd at the Filipino Festival in Vancouver 1 month ago, killing 11 and injuring dozens more. The scope of the tragedy means there is broad and international interest in this case, although some of the information revealed in court so far is under a publication ban. The judge speaking about the need to find a balance between our open court system and the public's right to know, with protecting Lowe's charter rights and guarantee to a fair trial should it come to that. It is possible Lowe could be deemed at some point in this process not criminally responsible on account of a mental disorder, meaning even if he is guilty, the court could determine a mental disorder prevented him from understanding what he was doing. Karen Larson, CBC News, Vancouver.
New funding has been announced to address public safety for local businesses across BC. As Janella Hamilton reports, the funding will go towards police initiatives, including projects in partnership with local communities.
The BC government has introduced $5 million in new funding to address nonviolent crime in downtown cores across the province. The new Community Safety and Targeted Enforcement Program, or CSTEP, is intended to boost local policing efforts to address issues like shoplifting, theft, and robbery affecting local businesses. It's also intended to support police with initiatives developed in tandem with businesses and social services to address public safety in their communities, like having more security patrols in stores or facilitating safety training and education for business owners.
We want the police agencies to come up with operational plans, requests, and expected matrix to find out where this funding is going to help them address the most pressing challenges facing on the street level.
A 2024 survey of small and medium-sized businesses in BC found that 82% of respondents say they experience fear, anxiety, and stress over things like increasing theft, violence, and aggression. Some in Vancouver welcomed the new program, saying theft is a major safety concern.
Shoplifting is an issue. It's very easy to steal, and if you work in a retail environment like I do, it can be hard to stop people from stealing.
As for the government spending that money, that's a great idea, because a lot of people don't feel safe. There's a lot of crime on the street.
When shoplifting or any crime in the city happens, that there needs to be more action about it. So instead of just letting them go, the catch and release, it needs to stop. I think it will cause a better safety for us and also more consequences for their actions.
One organization representing small businesses says they're cautiously optimistic about the funding.
Small businesses want government to take crime seriously. Last year, 57% of small businesses in BC were impacted by crime in some way.
The BC RCMP will be administering the funding on behalf of the provincial government. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
Vancouver police have arrested someone in connection with the murder of a man in Crab Park earlier this year. The 51-year-old's body was found by a person walking on the northwest side of the park in March. Police say the victim had been shot. A 47-year-old suspect is now charged with 1 count of first-degree murder. He remains in custody until his next court appearance. BC's Francophone School Board may soon be able to expropriate private property to build new schools. This after a BC Supreme Court ruling ordered the provincial government to pass a law within 6 months to allow for it. As Chad Pawson reports, it's something every other school board in the province has the power to do.
Francophone school students from across BC at SFU for graduation. The momentous occasion accomplished despite challenges in accessing French language education in the province.
Yes, sure. Yes, it's a challenge every day because we need, my kids need to take the bus every day and spend 1 hour or more, depends on traffic, to go to the secondary school especially. Yes.
There's definitively a lot of demand for, and capacity is in a lot of cases is not there.
But yeah, I wish, because the commutes are long to get your kids to Francophone, so it would be nice if there was more access.
A BC Supreme Court ruling made public this week could help. It's part of a years-long legal fight over French language education and weighed whether education rights in BC under Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms were being violated. Its rulings include allowing the Francophone School Board to expropriate private sites to build schools, forcing majority or English school boards to better share their underutilized sites with the French School Board, forcing the province to be more transparent over budgets for French language education, and forcing the Vancouver Board of Education to transfer 2 sites, Queen Elizabeth Annex and Laurier Annex. In a statement, the province thanked the court for the ruling, which it says will help it fulfill its constitutional obligations under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms related to minority language education rights. Still, despite these apparent wins, the Francophone School Board is not celebrating the ruling and chronicled a list of shortcomings, notably the province not being forced to approve funding for new French language schools or putting in place timelines for changes to address urgent need. The Francophone School Board says it's considering appealing the ruling. It spent nearly $11 million on legal action over this equality fight, putting a nearly $5 million deficit in its current budget. Chad Pawson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, if you're a book lover, you may have heard of the Wolves of Mercy Falls Romantasy series. Shiver, the much-anticipated film based on the first novel wrapped up in filming in Vancouver late last year. But as Jason Proctor tells us, the financial wolves at the door of the film's producers have put Shiver on ice.
The first movie of what's expected to be a series based on this wildly popular young adult fiction series, The Wolves of Mercy Hall. But it has run into these massive financial difficulties. And what it comes down to, from the court filings I've seen, is that you have a battle between the production company, which is sort of specifically formed to make this movie, and the studio, which is in Wyoming, which has pledged to give $20 million to make this movie. And that money comes kind of bit by bit as the proceedings go along. They started filming last year. They wrapped up filming in December, but basically the money ground to a halt. There's $11 million, which, they say has been paid, and, the rest is still not there yet. And so basically they laid everybody off. Everything's gone on ice, and hundreds of Canadian creditors are out about $2 million at this point. So the production company here has been forced into creditor protection, which means, nobody can sue them to get that money, while the studio, basically has argued against that. But that's where things are out right now. And as I say, I've spoken to people ranging from, canine, trainers to movers to the guy that pulls ice and snow back and forth, because this is set in, Minnesota, who say they're all out of money. Now, this creditor protection means they're protected from those financial wolves at the door, as you say. But for now, that's sort of where it's at. The film is in the can, but, until that money is forthcoming or some kind of financial situation is rectified, the movie's going to basically, sit where it is. They're hoping to release it July 26th, but who knows?
A fast-burning wildfire in the province's northeast has forced members of the nearby Kelly Lake Cree Nation to evacuate. BC Wildfire says the Kiskatna River wildfire has quadrupled in size since it was first recorded Wednesday. It now covers roughly 46 square kilometers. Census data from StatsCan shows about 75 people live in the area. They are being advised to evacuate to Dawson Creek.
There have been concerns, obviously due to climate change and the precipitation that has been really lacking in the area.
BC Wildfire Service has sent structural protection units to the community. The fire is among about 60 burning in the province, 34 of which are classified as burning out of control. BC is also contributing to the national firefighting effort, with the Wildfire Service revealing it has deployed 42 personnel to Manitoba to assist in that province's wildfire response. Crews have been working in the Pas as well as Lac de Bonny. Premier Wab Kinew says he expects thousands more people from northern parts of Manitoba to be evacuated as wildfires continue to rage. Darius Madavi joins us now with a look at our weather. Darius?
Right, so we'll take a closer look at Manitoba later in the show, because there is good reason to be deploying resources there for sure. But first, fire danger here in BC remains very high to extreme up in the province's northeast. But down in the south, we have seen a little bit of moderation, especially here on the south coast. If we take a look at our precipitation, you can see a few showers spreading across parts of the island right now. That's going to continue heading down the south coast and reaching us here on the lower mainland by tomorrow morning. So here, 8 a.m., you can see that precipitation starting to arrive in Vancouver, parts of the South Island as well. It should continue through the morning, maybe on and off, but fairly consistently. And then by early afternoon, it should move off of Vancouver. We're talking either noon or closer to 2 or 3 p.m., depending on whether we get that second impulse moving in. And we'll look at the rest of the province later in the show.
Thanks so much, Darius.
Thank you.
A trip to Asia to drum up business. Who's joining Premier David Eby as he tries to drum up business in the face of a tariff war? That's next. Premier David Eby is heading to Asia Saturday on a 10-day trade mission in a bid to diversify trade away from the United States. As Katie DeRosa reports, some business leaders accompanying the delegation say it's a critical moment for trade between BC and Asia.
Premier David Eby and a delegation of BC business leaders will visit Japan, South Korea and Malaysia, trying to court new trading partners in key industries, including mining, seafood and clean energy. The CEO of one Vancouver-based mining company plans to meet with shareholders in Japan, which he says will be key to developing the Baptiste Nickel Project, a proposed mine near Fort St. James.
It could be one of the world's largest nickel operations. And as such, it's likely to be a project that necessitates some degree of foreign investment.
BC's burgeoning LNG industry is also highly dependent on Asian markets, says one company operating a liquefied gas export terminal at the port of Prince Rupert.
One of the big things in the world today is uncertainty, as we know, through tariffs and the talk about what's going on south of Canadian border here. That uncertainty is all over the world. And so promoting trade, our east-west trade with Canada into our Asian partners is really important right now.
The port of Prince Rupert is the third largest port in Canada by volume of trade, with $60 billion in annual trade flowing through.
When you look at the port systems and the supply chains they anchor, they're critical enablers of BC's trade objectives, and participating in this mission is critical to ensure that we can demonstrate the capacity to do that.
The trade mission comes at a key moment as Canada fights tariffs on two fronts, with the United States over our auto sector and with China, which slapped 25% tariffs on Canadian seafood in retaliation to Canada's tariffs on Chinese cars. BC's agriculture minister says the delegation will visit Costco offices in Japan and South Korea to tout BC seafood and visit a halal trade show in Malaysia to showcase halal butchers in BC.
We have such an incredible reputation as a quality food producer, but also as a safe food producer.
BC Conservative leader John Rustad, however, slammed the NDP government for closing trade offices across Asia in 2019, which he claims has left BC on the back foot when it comes to trade with those countries. Katie DeRosa, CBC News, Victoria.
The Port of Prince Rupert plans to test self-driving trucks as it explores ways to increase its capacity. That's according to a Port Authority presentation first obtained by the Tyee and viewed by CBC News. As Yasmin Khanea reports, not everyone is on board with the plan.
The Port of Prince Rupert, Canada's third largest port, handles about $60 billion in trade value each year, with plans to expand. A presentation from the Prince Rupert Port Authority obtained by the Tyee and viewed by CBC says container transload volumes will grow significantly between now and 2035 because of two expansion projects. It says driver shortages could be felt as soon as 2026. One of the proposed solutions: self-driving trucks from an Ontario company. The Port Authority says it will test the trucks this June and July, following previous tests last year.
We were angered and annoyed at it, and obviously that's opposed to the testing.
The union representing truck drivers says automation could mean job losses and safety issues.
It's not that the Teamsters oppose modernization or greater efficiency. It's just that we don't want to see mismanagement disguised as innovation.
Stand up! Fight back! In 2023, thousands of BC port workers walked off the job, halting billions of dollars in trade, partly over concerns about automation on the waterfront. This labor economist says it's likely more ports will push for automation.
If it's going to push down costs, then we're going to see more of it. It's just that simple. They're going to try to push down their costs by any means they possibly can.
The Prince Rupert Port Authority says there are currently no plans to incorporate self-driving trucks into port operations, just to test them, and says that technology would only be considered once the current driver pool is maxed out. Meanwhile, the Port of Vancouver, Canada's largest port, says it doesn't have any self-driving truck projects in the works. Yasmin Khanea, CBC News, Vancouver.
Cloudy skies over Mount Washington on Vancouver Island. Darius will have your full provincial forecast coming up. The sex assault trial of 5 former World Junior Hockey Canada players continued in a London, Ontario courtroom, with Carter Hart taking to the witness box for a second day. He is the first of the accused to testify on his own behalf. The CBC's Ali Chiasson has more on the proceedings.
Carter Hart has testified if he had seen anything disrespectful happening in that hotel room, he would have said something or left. And so Crown Attorney Megan Cunningham seemingly tests that, pointing out some of the other alleged sex acts, like the alleged slap on the rear by Dylan Dubé. She asks him, would that be considered disrespectful to you? He asks, a slap that hurt? The Crown says any slap on her bottom after oral for you and oral on Mikey. Yes, Hart says, if she was not okay with it. One of the consent videos is played where EM is saying she's consenting to things in the room. In the background, you can hear, I'll get fabs, I'll get fabs. Carter Hart agrees that's him, referring to his friend with that nickname. 2 minutes later, he texted that friend, get to 209. He's asked about why he would do that. Hart said his friend was also single and, quote, she kept asking for more guys. That player did not go to the room. Criminal defense attorney Lydia Riva says this is the Crown trying to poke holes in his character.
It is a tall order to discredit a defendant, especially one who has been consistently denying the allegations. She has been cross-examining on some areas such as his memory, whether or not it has been impacted by his level of intoxication. She's put to him at times that he's even feigned memory to protect other people in the room. But ultimately, she's trying to discredit him so that the trial judge ultimately will disbelieve his evidence.
Carter Hart was the only witness Megan Savard called before she rested her case. The next defense team will be up on Monday. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, London, Ontario.
A 14-year-old boy has now been charged with first-degree murder in the stabbing death of an elderly woman in Pickering, just east of Toronto. Philip Lee Shannock takes us to a neighborhood shaken by an apparently random attack.
Didn't know her as well, but they've always been there, and she always says hi.
Gabriella Frederick says she saw her neighbor across the street just moments before the deadly attack.
I saw him walking towards the house.
Then, a short time later, she saw her neighbor lying on her front lawn.
I actually saw her there, and there was somebody who was trying to give her CPR.
Within minutes, police and paramedics arrived at the house. The immediate area was cordoned off, and an emergency alert was issued, warning that police were looking for a homicide suspect and members of the public should shelter in place. The victim, described as in her 80s, had been stabbed multiple times. She was taken to hospital where she died.
The good soul people that just happened to, it's tragic, real tragic.
Part of this investigation.
Police say 14-year-old was arrested at his Pickering home without incident. Investigators are looking for a motive.
This appears to be a random attack, and we do have no connection between the victim as well as the male that's in custody.
Police say the suspect and the victim had a brief conversation before the attack. They're not releasing the name and age of the victim at the request of her family. But at this church the woman had attended, the pastor says she was a well-loved member.
She would have been welcoming to any person, any stranger coming up to her. She would have had her hands wide open to see what she could do to help them.
The accused appeared by video in Oshawa court charged with first-degree murder. His identity is protected under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. He's scheduled to appear in court again on June 20th. Philip Lee Shannock, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, you may have seen them post on social media advertising oral drops and other diabetes-related products. Now, Diabetes Canada is warning consumers these products might be fake after it received a surge in calls from people who fell for the scam. Alison Northcott reports.
When you open the box, you have this gadget.
Joel Snitman thought he was ordering a device to monitor his blood sugar to help manage his type 2 diabetes after seeing an ad on Facebook appearing to be endorsed by Diabetes Canada. But the product he got wasn't what was advertised.
I got sucked in, then obviously there'd be other people to get sucked in, and I wanted Diabetes Canada to know that some crooked outfit was using their logo.
Diabetes Canada says it's heard from more than 300 people complaining of similar ads.
Slimming and health boost drops.
It says it never endorses any medical products.
If you live with diabetes and you are seeing a health product, you think, oh, that looks interesting, and it's endorsed by Diabetes Canada, you need to know that's false.
The organization has tried to get the ads pulled down. In a statement, Facebook's owner, Meta, said it has removed some of the ads in question flagged to them by CBC News and is still investigating. But when one ad disappears, Diabetes Canada says another pops up, and the confusion that creates makes an already complicated disease even harder to manage.
If they wind up going on a whole trajectory of taking something or using something that isn't helpful, who knows, perhaps harmful, then they risk having a worsening of their condition.
Some ads have also used logos for Obesity Canada and even Health Canada, but the companies pushing the products can be hard to track down.
We are working with our legal team to hopefully reach out to them and cease and desist.
Health Canada told us the product Joel Snitman thought he was buying is not on the list of authorized medical devices in Canada. Diabetes Canada says anyone considering a monitoring device or a treatment found online should talk to their doctor first. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
U.S. President Donald Trump thanked Elon Musk today. The world's richest man is finishing his term as a federal worker after leading DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency.
I think the DOGE team is doing an incredible job. They're going to continue doing an incredible job, and I'll continue to be visiting here and be a friend and advisor to the president.
Musk went into the job promising to cut more than $1 trillion in federal spending. So far, the number is much lower. The speed and scope of the cuts raised widespread anger in the U.S. Musk has plenty to do outside government, like running Tesla, rocket company SpaceX, and his social media platform X. The U.S. expressed optimism earlier this week about negotiating a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, but so far the two sides have yet to reach an agreement. The CBC's Tom Perry in Jerusalem has the latest.
What's been reported is that this deal would see Hamas release 10 living Israeli hostages and the remains of 18 deceased hostages. So that's 28 out of a total of 58 hostages, living and dead, that Hamas still has in Gaza. Now, in return, the Israelis would release a number of Palestinian prisoners. There'd be a 60-day ceasefire, and Israel would allow more aid to get into the territory. Earlier this week, it was the Israelis who were balking at this deal, but we heard yesterday that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had told the families of hostages that his government now backs the plan. The issue now is Hamas. The group has questions around the guarantees being offered on food deliveries. Also, though, on talks toward a permanent peace. Hamas wants this to be over, but it wants to remain in Gaza. The Israelis want to maintain the right to keep going after Hamas if they're there, and ultimately what they want is for Hamas to lay down its weapons, surrender, and just not be in Gaza anymore. So we're going to have to see whether there's any kind of temporary compromise that can be reached to reach this temporary ceasefire and allow more aid to get in. And on that, really, aid is still just at a trickle entering Gaza. It's not nearly what people need, and we've been seeing these scenes of chaos, people swarming aid depots. We saw a scene in central Gaza of people overrunning a food warehouse, a food distribution site. As many as 4 people, according to reports out of Gaza, were killed in this melee. And we've seen as well scenes of people storming, going after a truck carrying flour, carrying off whatever they can. So really just scenes of desperation in Gaza. And so the hope was that a ceasefire would ease some of that desperation. But right now, there is no ceasefire. The two sides don't agree just yet. And so the suffering for the people of Gaza and for the families of Israeli hostages continues. Tom Perry, CBC News, Jerusalem.
An alarming situation in the prairies with wildfires ripping through communities and thousands on the run. The latest on those fires and the weather fueling them next.
So I know when I really like a song, if within the first 3 seconds, I'm already vibing to it.
Hey, I'm Rohith Joseph. Vibin' is the new show all about discovering great new songs and fresh artists from across BC and beyond.
It's not one person dictating what good music is, it's the community sharing what good music is.
Stream Vibin' on CBC Listen.
It's touch and go in Flint Flon, Manitoba. After holding back a wildfire for more than 2 days, winds are expected to shift, pushing the fire closer to the city. Cameron McIntosh has more on the situation there and in other communities in Manitoba.
At least 20 wildfires are burning across Manitoba. Right now, the future of the city of Flint Flon rests on wind direction. For 2 days now, a fire line about 2 kilometers outside the city is held, but winds are expected to change, blowing northwest, pushing the fire back towards the city about 600 kilometers northwest of Winnipeg. On Wednesday, an evacuation order saw most of the city's 5,000 residents leave. As of now, only firefighters and emergency personnel remain. Premier Wab Kinew spoke this afternoon.
The situation there is very, very serious, and we are doing everything that we can to preserve life, but also to preserve people's livelihoods and homes in the region.
Flin Flon's mayor being very clear the city is in peril.
We've seen devastation across the country in different communities where this has happened, and there's a very, very high potential that it's going to happen here.
It's going to be hit or miss, Mother Nature, what can you do? So it's rebuilding, that goes through your mind.
About 100 kilometers north of Flin Flon, another fire threatens Matthias Coulomb Cree Nation. Helicopters, boats, and now Canadian Armed Forces planes are being used to evacuate hundreds from the community. Further east, the Air Force is also using Hercules aircraft to move a few thousand residents of Pimichikamak Cree Nation, who fled to a neighboring community after fire cut off access to their airport and highway south, which is briefly being reopened today. All told, about 17,000 people are trying to leave their homes in Manitoba. Meanwhile, as wildfires grow across Western Canada, Canadian firefighting resources are being stretched. International help is being called in. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
As the wildfires burn across Western Canada, Johanna Wagstaff has more on the extreme heat and gusty winds that are expected and how it's creating a perfect storm for it to get even worse.
It's only May, and already much of the prairies are in the middle of a dangerous and fast-moving wildfire season. Much of the region has been locked in persistent drought for months, drying out the landscape and priming it for fire. And the weather is about to make things even worse in the days to come. A massive pocket of heat imported straight from the southern U.S. is sitting over the region right now. A strong southerly wind is acting like a fire hose of hot, dry air. Nearly everyone in the prairies will likely have hit 30 degrees by Thursday. That heat, combined with bone-dry conditions, is exactly what helped spark these fires. Now, here's the catch. On the back end of this system is a cold front. And when it swings through, it will bring gusty winds and scattered thunderstorms to Alberta Thursday night. That combination, lightning and wind, is the last thing fire crews want. But the heat will be the one to win out for Saskatchewan and Manitoba through the weekend, which also means no rain and gusty winds in the forecast. The hot zone is expanding eastward into southern Manitoba and northwestern Ontario, where fire danger conditions are already at extreme. And we have to talk about the air quality. Smoke from the wildfires has already blanketed large parts of northern Saskatchewan and Manitoba, and poor air quality alerts are likely to expand. Depending on the wind, we could see wildfire smoke pushed back into central and even southern regions by the weekend. It's been a rough start to the fire season, and it's still early, but there is a glimmer of relief on the horizon. Models suggest more seasonal temperatures could return by early June, and with them, a much-needed break in this relentless pattern.
The weather update is brought to you by BC Cancer Foundation. Support BC Cancer Foundation by leaving a gift in your will and join our 90-year legacy of driving life-saving innovations.
Darius Madavi is back with a look at our weather. Darius?
Right. So I thought we'd start with Manitoba. I know Johanna talked a little bit about it, but I just thought let's take a closer look at the conditions on the ground right now, because we're seeing those winds pick up. We have those high temperatures that we have for a while now in the region. Earlier today, we were even warmer than this, close to 30 degrees. And if we look at the winds here, you can see exactly what Johanna mentioned that we were worried about. It's those winds blowing up from the north, bringing those fires down. And she mentioned southerly winds bring that heat up. That is the risk in terms of those temperatures. That's why we're seeing all that heat. But right now, it's that ridge breaking down or moving off, I should say. And as that moves, we're going to see a trough move in, low pressure. It's allowing those winds to blow in from the north, pushing that fire down towards the community, gusting up to 40, maybe at times even up to 50 kilometers per hour. And even after we get through tonight, we're not out of the woods. On Sunday and into Monday, we're going to see strong winds again. Fortunately, not likely at this point to blow from the north, so not towards the community exactly, but still blowing from the west is not ideal either, allowing that fire to grow even more. Now, if we zoom out, you can see the fire danger we have across the western part of the country. Extreme fire danger pretty much blanketing Saskatchewan and Alberta, largely, again, because of those temperatures across the region. And, of course, the winds are not only confined to Flint Flon. We are seeing those high winds really starting to pick up through the weekend across the west. So lots to watch there. And it's not just a story for the west. Because of the smoke being carried all the way into eastern Canada as well, you can see places like Toronto being very strongly affected by a lot of that smoke and haze, especially as we get into tonight and tomorrow. Now, let's take a look at here in BC, because we've got some temperatures to talk about here as well. That heat that we saw today, not quite as much as we saw on Wednesday, I should say, but it's going to come down even more again tomorrow, and then we'll slowly start to recover again through the weekend and into early next week when the sun comes out again, probably on Sunday, because again, we're going to see a little bit of rain tonight into tomorrow. Here we have our highs in the interior as well. Again, moderating a little bit, but the potential for thunderstorms with that as well. So that is something else to watch for, the possibility of dry lightning, especially on Sunday this weekend in the interior. Our rain that you can see, unfortunately, not as much precipitation as we would like to see in the interior coming along with those thunderstorms, more than likely. Here are our conditions across the province tomorrow. Again, risk of thunderstorms in some areas, but also a chance of some showers in the interior. I know there's a lot of text there, but again, showers tomorrow morning through early afternoon, and then we start to clear up, but we're going to be gusty on the beaches.
Thank you for all that important information, Darius.
Thank you.
Well, if you haven't been paying attention to the Vancouver Whitecaps this season, you probably will this weekend. The soccer club is at the top of the Major League Soccer standings and now has a chance to be the best in all of North and Central America and the Caribbean. Chad Pawson sets up this weekend's big match in Mexico City.
Puts it in the middle, chance to shoot! Oh, Vancouver's done it!
It's been goal after goal and win after win. The Whitecaps are having a Cinderella season with their biggest match of the year Sunday in Mexico City. People who follow the team agree it's one of the biggest matches in the club's 50-year history.
Experiencing a cup final like this, it's going to be something I don't think I'm prepared for. This is going to be something else, and I'm really here for it.
We're number one in the West, and now we're in the finals for the CONCACAF. It's just, don't doubt this little team that could, right?
The match on Sunday determines the best club team in North and Central America and the Caribbean, or CONCACAF, meaning the winner qualifies for the 2029 FIFA World Cup for club teams, which would be a first for the Whitecaps and come with benefits.
If you win this trophy, the amount of money you're able to bring into the club, the fact you're able to go play in a Club World Cup, it's a huge opportunity to showcase MLS, to showcase Canadian soccer on a global stage. There's a lot that comes with it.
The match takes place against Mexican side Cruz Azul, or Blue Cross, a very successful club in its own right, which has home field advantage. Still, the Whitecaps are unbeaten in 15 games.
So, yeah, really good stretch we've been on. Hopefully we can continue that through this weekend.
It is a special game, and if it's not a special game, then special games doesn't exist. So we are looking forward, and yeah, we think we're ready for it.
700 locals are making the trip to Mexico City to try and sing and chant their team to victory. Southsiders president Peter Zimmerman will be one of them.
For an international competition, flying more than 6 hours, this is a massive number. It's fantastic, and I know that it's going to be a real impact and help for the players.
Here in Vancouver, restaurants and bars are getting ready to host people wanting to watch the game. The Whitecaps will also host a sold-out watch party here at Terry Fox Plaza on Sunday. The game kicks off at 6 p.m. Chad Pawson, CBC News, Vancouver.
A star-studded win for a team of young robotic experts from West Vancouver. How they created the perfect team. That's next.
We're sharing really important information with the public, and I feel like this is exactly what our job is, especially as the public broadcaster, especially in morning radio. That's incredibly important.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and this is your CBC Inbox. CBC celebrates Asian Heritage Month through the language of movement, where every step tells a story. Throughout the month of May, we're shining a spotlight on Asian dance groups, showcasing the dynamic blend of classical, folk, and contemporary dance forms. These talented dance groups share their cultural heritage through stories and traditions, knowledge and technique. Read and watch their stories at cbc.ca/BC.
Vancouver Aquarium's Marine Mammal Rescue Society has taken in its first harbor seal pup of the season. The society says there were clear signs that indicated Zeus required help. He still had his white fluffy fur, which meant he was likely born premature, and he still had his umbilical cord attached.
He was alone for an extended period of time, but he also is quite underweight. When our team went and assessed him, they noticed that he was also dehydrated looking, so meaning that he probably hadn't nursed from his mom in quite a while.
Oh, the Society rescues upwards of 100 pups each year. They're cautioning people to keep a distance if they see a lone pup, keep pets away, and call the Rescue Society.
A team of young engineers from BC has made history at the world's largest robotic competition.
For the first time ever, a single team won the top 3 awards in the university division at Vex Robotics. Amelia John met with the team at their headquarters in West Vancouver.
This was the historic moment a team of university students from BC won the Triple Crown at the Vex Robotics competition in Dallas, Texas.
And we're all just kind of in a state of shock, I think. I think that's the best way to describe it throughout the entire thing. Like even throughout the end, we were all just like so surprised that any of it happened.
10 Ton is made up of about a dozen members. Every Friday, they practice here at their headquarters in West Vancouver.
I knew a whole bunch of really talented people in robotics competing in high school. So basically I wanted to start a team with them. So I went around, collected a whole bunch of people I knew, and that's how 10 Ton formed.
The supergroup of UBC, SFU, and BCIT students designs, builds, programs, and drives a robot. Not to fight, but to compete in a specific game to score points.
The main thing we tried to do going into the World Championship was just make super consistent robots. We figured teams are going to have all these flashy designs with big working mechanisms that do crazy points. But we figured if we can just get a consistent amount of points, we'd be able to outplay them.
When 10 Ton made it to the finals, they couldn't believe their luck.
What these kids done that I've never had a team do before is they won skills and they won tournament and they won excellence, which is, it's the first time it's ever been done in the running of this whole Vex Robotics World Championships over almost 20 years now.
The team has been riding high since their return to BC.
We've got a lot of congratulations. Lots of messages have come in from, I think, all our friends and families. And yeah, we immediately got, I think, like 2 new emails about sponsorships.
Every year the game changes, meaning there's already a new challenge to work on for next year's World Championship. Amelia John, CBC News, West Vancouver.
Before we go, a huge congratulations to Jackie McKay, our colleague at CBC Indigenous. Today, she won a Canadian Screen Award for Best Local Reporter.
I've had a very unusual career in the fact that I have only worked for First Nations bosses mostly, and I've had a lot of Indigenous mentors in this career, and they've really shaped how I feel about the news and how I tell the news. And so winning this and my position for CBC Indigenous means a lot.
McKay went on to say she loves community news and feels it's important people see themselves reflected in it. Congratulations, Jackie.
Yeah, huge congratulations. Very well deserved.
Yes, absolutely, and so exciting to see her up there.
And thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, YouTube, and our website, cbc.ca/BC.
I'll have your next local news at 11 o'clock right after the National. Have a great night.